Commander Tay gripped the controls of the horizon as the ship punched through the fabric of space itself. The warp drive hummed beneath his feet, a sound that no human had ever heard before this moment. Around him, his crew held their breath. Pilot Una sat at the navigation console, her knuckles white. Engineer Jin monitored the power readings with wide eyes. Medical Officer Hannah stood by the doorway, watching everything with quiet intensity. The stars stretched and twisted. Reality bent. Then, with a sound like tearing silk, the horizon dropped back into normal space. Tay looked at the view screen, and his heart stopped. They had emerged directly in front of a massive alien structure. It hung in space like a dark flower, all sharp edges and strange angles. Lights pulsed across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at. This was not natural. This was built by something intelligent. Something that was not human. Are you seeing this? Una whispered. Her voice shook with excitement and fear. I'm seeing it, Tay said. He checked the sensors. No planets nearby. No asteroids. Just empty space and this structure. They had jumped blind, hoping to land somewhere safe. Instead, they had landed in front of proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. Jin leaned forward. Commander, I'm picking up energy signatures. That thing is active, and it's scanning us. Before Tay could respond, the structure lit up. A beam of violet light swept across the horizon from nose to tail. The ship's alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed across every console. They're targeting us, Una shouted. Tay's mind raced. They had done nothing wrong. They had just arrived. Why would anyone attack them? He reached for the communications panel. This is Commander Tay of the human exploration vessel Horizon. We mean no harm. We are peaceful explorers from Earth. Please respond. The violet light intensified. Inside the alien station, the Vexel commander stared at his screens with 4 compound eyes. His species looked like massive insects, with chitinous armor and too many legs. He had been observing Earth for 20 cycles, watching the humans build their primitive rockets and dream of the stars. They were not supposed to achieve faster-than-light travel for another 100 cycles. The Council had calculated it precisely, yet here they were. It's impossible. The only explanation was that they had stolen the technology, perhaps from a crashed scout ship, perhaps from intercepted transmissions. It did not matter. They had broken the natural order. They had violated the progression. The commander's mandibles clicked in agitation. He made a decision that would doom his entire civilization. He gave the order to fire. The horizon shook as energy bolts slammed into her hull. Tay was thrown from his chair. Alarms howled. Smoke filled the bridge. He pulled himself up using the command console and saw the damage reports flooding in. The port side was breached. Life support was failing in 3 sections. The warp drive was offline. Return fire, he shouted. But even as he said it, he knew it was useless. The Horizon was an exploration vessel. She had basic defensive weapons, meant for clearing debris and scaring off pirates in the home system. Nothing that could hurt a structure this size another blast hit them. This one tore through the medical bay. Hannah had been heading there when the attack started. Tay heard her scream over the intercom, then nothing. His blood turned to ice. Hannah. He called, Hannah, respond. I've got her on sensors, Jin said, his voice tight. She's alive, but hurt bad. The whole section is venting atmosphere. Una worked her controls frantically. I can't get us out of here. The warp drive is dead. Conventional engines are damaged. We're sitting ducks. The Vexel station fired again, but this time the beam was different. It wrapped around the horizon like a rope of light. The ship lurched forward, pulled toward the station against Una's desperate attempts to break free. They're tractoring us in, she said. Tay looked at Jin. Can you send a message to Earth? Maybe if I route everything through the emergency beacon. It'll drain our remaining power, but I can do it. Do it, Tay ordered. Tell them what happened. Tell them we found aliens. Tell them those aliens shot first. Jin's fingers flew across his console. Message away, Commander. It'll take 3 months to reach Earth at light speed, but it's away. The Horizon was dragged into the docking bay of the Vexel station. Armed aliens in environment suits swarmed the ship. They cut through the airlocks and flooded inside. Tay, Yuna, and Jin were pulled from the bridge at gunpoint. They were taken to a holding cell that smelled of chemicals and fear. Hannah was brought in later, unconscious and bandaged. The aliens had treated her wounds, but barely. She would live, but she would carry scars forever. The Vexel commander stood before them, his translator device rendering his clicks and buzzes into flat, emotionless words. "You will tell us where you obtained the warp technology." Tay met his insectoid gaze. "We built it ourselves. We're not thieves. Impossible. Humans are primitive. You should not have this capability for a century. Well, we do. And you attacked us, without warning. That's an act of war." The commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "War? You do not understand. You have violated council protocols. The punishment is containment. Your species will be quarantined. Your technology will be stripped. You will submit, or you will be eliminated." He left them in the cell. Tay sat beside Hannah and held her hand. She was breathing, but her pulse was weak. Yuna paced like a caged animal. Jin stared at the walls, his engineer's mind probably trying to find a way out. "They're going to come for us," Tay said quietly. "Earth. Humanity. When they get our message, they'll come. We'll probably be dead by then," Yuna said. Maybe Tay agreed, but they'll still come. And when they do, these aliens are going to regret they ever pointed a weapon at a human. Far away, the Vexel commander sent his report to the Galactic Council. He lied in every line. He said the humans had attacked first. He said they were dangerous and violent. He said they must be contained immediately. The Council, which had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years without challenge, believed him without question. They voted to quarantine Earth. They sent a fleet of 200 ships. They prepared an ultimatum demanding complete surrender. They did not know what humans were. They did not know what humans could do when threatened. They did not know that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. The war had begun. 3 months after the Horizon disappeared, emergency beacon reached Earth. The message was fragmented and corrupted by distance. But the critical parts were clear enough. Commander Tay's crew had achieved faster-than-light travel. They had found aliens. Those aliens had opened fire without provocation. Admiral Quan stood in the Situation Room deep beneath Geneva, watching the message play for the 5th time. He was a hard man, made harder by 30 years of military service and a war on Mars that had killed 500,000 people. He had gray hair, gray eyes, and a reputation for never backing down from a fight. "Play the end again," he ordered. The technician complied. Tay's voice came through the speakers, broken by static but still clear. "Tell them what happened. Tell them we found aliens. Tell them those aliens shot first." The room fell silent. 50 people stood around the table, representatives from every nation and major corporation on Earth. They had been arguing for hours about what to do. Some wanted to send a rescue mission. Others wanted to hide and hope the aliens never found Earth. A few wanted to try negotiating. Quan had heard enough. "They shot first," he said quietly. "They attacked an unarmed exploration vessel. They wounded or captured our people. And according to the sensor data TE transmitted, they're coming here." President Suji nodded from her seat at the head of the table. She was young for a world leader, barely 50, but she had risen to power on a platform of unity and strength. The Horizon sensors detected a large fleet moving toward our solar system. "They'll arrive in approximately 6 months. What do we do, Admiral?" Quan looked at each person in the room. "We fight. We build every weapon we can. We turn this entire system into a fortress. And when they arrive, we make them regret they ever heard of Earth, against a civilization that has mastered faster-than-light travel. Someone objected. We'll be slaughtered." "Maybe," Quan agreed, "but we'll make them pay for it. And maybe, just maybe, we'll survive. Humans are good at surviving." President Suji stood. Her voice was steady and strong. "I'm authorizing total mobilization. Every resource, Every factory, every mind. We have 6 months to prepare for war. Let's make them count. The word went out across Earth and all the colonies. Mars, Luna, the asteroid belt, the moons of Jupiter. Every human settlement received the same message. Aliens existed. They were hostile. They were coming. Prepare to fight. The response was unlike anything in human history. Old enemies became allies overnight. The corporations opened their research labs. The military shipyards ran 24 hours a day. On Mars, where Quan had once fought a bloody rebellion, the colonists welcomed Earth soldiers with open arms. Humanity, for the first time in its entire existence, stood united. Engineer Salman and scientist Hune led the team examining the data from the horizon. They studied every piece of information Tay had managed to transmit: the alien station's energy signature, the tractor beam, the weapon systems. They found something interesting. Their technology is advanced, Salman explained to the admiral, but not in every way. They rely heavily on energy shields. Their hulls are thin. They probably haven't fought a real war in centuries. Maybe longer? What does that mean for us? Quan asked. Tyon pulled up a simulation. It means we can hurt them. Our weapons are primitive by their standards, but we have something they don't. We have kinetic weapons, railguns, missiles, things that don't care about energy shields if they're moving fast enough. And we have nuclear weapons. They'll have defenses against nukes, Quan said. Against sophisticated nuclear missiles with guidance systems and countermeasures. Yes, Soman agreed. But what about a cargo ship filled with fusion warheads and set to ram? What about asteroids accelerated to relativistic speeds? What about 10,000 cheap drones, each carrying a simple explosive? We can't match their technology, but we can overwhelm them with volume. Quan smiled for the first time in weeks. Quantity has a quality all its own. Commander Nari, one of Quan's top strategists, developed the tactical doctrine that would define the war. She was brilliant, ruthless, and creative. Her plan was simple. Humans would not fight like the aliens expected. They would use every dirty trick they knew. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years, she told her staff. We know things about war that these aliens have probably forgotten. We know how to use terrain. We know how to lay traps. We know how to make every death cost the enemy more than it costs us. We teach them what war really means. 6 months passed like 6 days. When the alien fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, they found something they did not expect. The humans had not surrendered. They had not hidden. They had built an armada. It was not an impressive armada by alien standards. Most of the ships were converted civilian vessels. Cargo haulers with armor plates welded to their hulls. Colony ships with missile pods strapped to their sides. Mining vessels with railguns mounted on their bows. But there were hundreds of them. Maybe 1,000. They filled the space around Earth like a swarm of angry insects. The alien fleet commander, a being named Thren, who had never lost a battle, broadcast his ultimatum. It was translated into every human language and transmitted across every frequency. Humans of Earth, you have violated Galactic Council protocols by developing faster-than-light travel prematurely. You have demonstrated violent tendencies incompatible with civilized space. You will surrender all technology immediately. You will submit to genetic modification to reduce your aggressive behaviors. You will accept council oversight of your species. Failure to comply will result in your extermination. You have 1 cycle to respond. President Suje's response was broadcast across the same frequencies. She stood in front of cameras with Admiral Quan at her side and every world leader behind her. Her message was short. You shot first. You attacked our people without provocation. You have threatened our home. We do not surrender. We do not submit. Come and take what you want. We'll be waiting. Captain J led the first wave. He was young, barely 30, but he had volunteered without hesitation. His ship was an old cargo hauler called the Defiant. She was slow, clumsy, and filled with enough nuclear warheads to crack a moon. He had a crew of 50, all volunteers. None of them expected to survive. The alien fleet moved forward, confident and precise. 200 ships in perfect formation, Their shields glowed with power, their weapons charged. The human swarm did not form neat lines. They came from every angle at once. Above, below, from the sides. Some flew straight at the enemy. Others used the debris field around Earth's orbital stations for cover. They did not try to match the aliens' formation. They swarmed like wolves attacking a bear. Jay's ship was hit almost immediately. The shield stripped away his armor. Energy beams melted through his hull. But he kept flying. His crew kept fighting. They launched every missile they had. When those were gone, they fired the railguns. When those failed, Jay pointed the Defiant directly at the largest alien ship and pushed the engines to maximum. The aliens tried to shoot him down, but too many other human ships were attacking. They could not focus on one target. The Defiant crashed into the alien flagship like a hammer. The nuclear warheads detonated in a flash that lit up the entire solar system. The flagship died. So did Captain Jay and his crew. But they took 4 other alien ships with them in the blast. That was how humans fought. That was the lesson the aliens learned that day. Humans did not care about formation. They did not care about honor. They cared about winning. And they were willing to die to do it. The battle lasted 18 hours. By the end, the alien fleet had lost 96 ships. The humans had lost 400, but the blockade was broken. Earth was free. Admiral Kwan stood in the Situation Room and looked at the casualty reports. 40,000 dead? 40,000 humans who had given their lives to prove that Earth could not be conquered. He felt the weight of every single one. President Suji put a hand on his shoulder. They're regrouping. The aliens. They'll be back with more ships. Let them come, Kwan said. Now they know what happens when you threaten humanity. We don't hide. We don't surrender. And we make you regret you ever found us. The Galactic Council Chamber was a place of order and dignity. For 50,000 years, the 12 species that ruled the galaxy had met here to make decisions that affected trillions of lives. The chamber was built inside a hollow asteroid, with walls of crystal that showed the stars beyond. Everything about it spoke of age, wisdom, and unshakable power. Today, power was shaken. Ambassador Thren stood at the center of the chamber, his reputation in ruins. He was a Drell, a species that looked almost humanoid except for the silver skin and the third eye in the center of his forehead. He had commanded the fleet that was supposed to blockade Earth. Instead, he had limped home with barely half his ships intact. Explain, demanded the council speaker, a massive being of living crystal. You had 200 ships. You faced primitive vessels held together with welds and desperation. How did you lose? Thrin's 3 eyes looked at each council member in turn. They do not fight like civilized species. They ram our ships. They use suicide tactics. They fill space with so much debris and ordnance that our targeting systems cannot track it all. And they do not stop. Even when their ships are crippled, even when they are dying, they keep fighting. They are animals, spat the Vexel representative, the same species that had started this war. We should exterminate them. But the Torvin ambassador, a bird-like creature with brilliant blue feathers, shook her head. Thren is right to be concerned. I have reviewed the battle data. I have also reviewed the historical files from the observation post. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered. She activated a holographic display. Images from Earth's history filled the chamber. Armies marching across muddy fields. Cities burning. Mushroom clouds rising over devastated landscapes. Trenches filled with bodies. Tanks crushing through ruins. Soldiers fighting building by building, room by room. They have been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. The Torvin ambassador continued. They have developed weapons specifically designed to kill their own kind in the millions. Chemical weapons. Biological weapons. Nuclear weapons. They wage total war. They target civilians. They destroy their own world in the name of victory. The chamber fell silent. The council members looked at the images with something close to horror. War existed in the galaxy, of course. Species fought over resources and territory. But civilized war had rules. You did not target civilians. You did not use weapons of mass destruction. You certainly did not wage war on your own species with such dedication. What kind of creatures are they? Whispered the speaker. Fleetmaster Quarren stepped forward. He was Drell like Thren, but where Thren was a diplomat, Quarren was a soldier. He commanded the Grand Fleet, the Council's ultimate military force. 2,000 ships strong, it had not been fully deployed in 3,000 years. They are predators, Quarren said. Look at their eyes. Front-facing, designed for tracking prey. Look at their teeth. They are omnivores, but their ancestors were hunters. Look at their hands, designed to grip weapons. Look at their bodies, designed for endurance. They evolved by chasing their prey until it died of exhaustion. They are persistence hunters. They do not give up. Pulled up more data. They live on a death world. Earth has extreme weather, predators in every environment, diseases that have killed them by the millions, yet they thrived. They spread across their entire planet. They survived ice ages and droughts and plagues. They are survivors above all else. Then we must act quickly, the Vexel representative insisted, before they spread beyond their system. I propose we deploy the Grand Fleet immediately and sterilize Earth. Orbital bombardment. Make the planet uninhabitable and create martyrs. The Torvan ambassador countered. The observation data shows they have colonies on multiple worlds in their system, stations on their moon, cities on Mars, habitats in the asteroid belt, mining operations on the moons of Jupiter. We cannot kill them all with one strike. Some will survive. And survivors remember? The debate raged for hours. Finally, the speaker made the decision. We deploy the Grand Fleet. We offer them one final chance to surrender. If they refuse, we demonstrate our power. We destroy their Mars colony. We show them the cost of defiance. Then we accept their surrender. Quarren bowed. It will be done. But privately, he had doubts. He had studied the humans more carefully than anyone else on the council. He had watched their history files obsessively, trying to understand them. What he found terrified him. These were not animals. They were thinking, feeling beings who had turned war into an art form. They had philosophers and poets, yes, but they also had generals and strategists who had written books on war that spanned thousands of pages, or knew something the council did not want to admit. The humans would not surrender. Not today, not ever. And that meant the war was just beginning. While the council prepared the Grand Fleet, Admiral Quan was not idle. He knew the aliens would return with overwhelming force, so he did not wait for them. He sent out raiding parties. Captain Wu was one of his best commanders. She was small, quick-thinking, and absolutely ruthless. She took a squadron of 20 fast ships deep into council space. Her mission was simple: cause chaos. Destroy supply lines. Make the aliens afraid to leave their stations. She found a convoy of council supply ships heading to a mining operation. They were defended by 5 warships, standard escort procedure. Wu attacked from an asteroid field using the rocks for cover. Her ships came in fast, launched missiles, and disappeared before the escorts could respond. 3 supply ships were destroyed. The convoy scattered. Wu hit 4 more convoys in the next month. The council was forced to divert ships to protect their logistics network. Ships that should have been preparing to attack Earth were instead playing defense. Meanwhile, pilot Yuna had been freed in a daring rescue. Commander Tay and his crew had been held on the Vexel station, but a human strike team led by Commander Nari had infiltrated the facility and broken them out. The rescue had cost 12 lives, but it brought back valuable intelligence. And it brought back Yuna. Yuna was changed. The attack on the horizon had killed 2 of her friends. She had spent 3 months in an alien prison. She had been interrogated and threatened, and shown images of Earth burning. The aliens had thought they could break her spirit. Instead, they had forged it into steel. She became humanity's deadliest pilot. Her ship was a custom fighter built by engineer Jin, faster and more maneuverable than anything the council had. She painted 17 stars on her hull, one for each alien ship she destroyed. The council put a bounty on her. She responded by painting a target on her ship and the words, "Come get me," in council standard. Jin himself was working on something new. He called them Reaper drones. They were simple AI-controlled ships, cheap to build and impossible to negotiate with. They had one function: find an alien ship and ram it at maximum speed. The Council had ethics protocols that prevented them from using AI weapons. Humans had no such restrictions. When the Grand Fleet finally arrived at the edge of the solar system, they found humanity ready. Quan had filled space with mines, hidden missile platforms, and automated defense stations. He had positioned his fleet not in one place, but in a dozen locations, ready to strike from multiple angles. Fleet Master Quarren broadcast his final ultimatum. Humans, this is your last chance. Surrender now, or face the full might of the Council. We will destroy your Mars colony. We will destroy your asteroid stations. We will reduce your military to nothing. Then you will surrender or die. Choose. Admiral Quan's response was broadcast from Earth on every frequency. You wanted to see what humans do when threatened. You wanted to test our resolve. Come find out. We're ready. The Battle of Terra began at dawn, Earth time. The Grand Fleet moved forward in perfect formation, 2,000 ships gleaming in the sunlight. They expected the humans to meet them head-on, to make a desperate stand. Instead, the humans did something insane. They unveiled their secret weapon. 30 ships, each one a converted colony vessel. Inside each ship, the crew was in cryosleep. The ships were piloted by simple AI, and each one was filled with antimatter. The ships accelerated to ramming speed and simply plowed into the Grand Fleet's formation. When they detonated, the explosions lit up the entire solar system. 30 Council ships were vaporized instantly. 50 more were damaged by the blasts. The perfect formation shattered. Then the mines activated. Then the missile platforms fired. Then Quan's fleet hit them from 3 directions at once. The Grand Fleet had never experienced anything like it. They had numbers and technology, but the humans had surprise desperation and a complete disregard for their own safety. Fleet Master Quarren saw his beautiful fleet torn apart. He saw ships ramming each other in the chaos. He saw human pilots flying into point-blank range to ensure their missiles hit. He saw Reaper drones swarming like locusts, each one a flying bomb. He made a decision that no Council commander had made in 3,000 years. He ordered a retreat. The humans had won. Not completely. They had lost ships. They had lost people. But they had driven back the Grand Fleet, the Council's ultimate. Weapon had been defeated. Quarren returned to the Council in disgrace. But he told them the truth. We cannot beat them with conventional tactics. They do not think like us. The plague came without warning. One day the colonies were healthy. The next, people started getting sick. It began with a fever. Then came the bleeding. Then death. The Council had engineered it perfectly. It spread through the air, through water, through touch. It killed fast, and it killed efficiently. Earth lost 1 billion people in the first month. Mars lost half its population. The orbital stations became floating tombs. The mining colonies in the asteroid belt went silent one by one. In 3 months, 3 billion humans were dead. President Suji stood in the medical center and watched people die. She wore a mask and protective gear, but it felt useless. The disease was everywhere. Her own daughter was sick, lying in a bed with blood seeping from her eyes and nose. Suji held her hand and felt helpless in a way she had never felt before. Admiral Quan stood beside her. He had lost his grandson to the plague. His son and daughter-in-law were both sick, but his face showed nothing. He had locked away his grief because the war demanded it. They did this, Suji said quietly. They created a weapon to kill us all, as Quan agreed. And now we respond. Scientist Heian and engineer Salman worked around the clock in a sealed laboratory. They had samples of the plague. They had the Council's biological template from captured data. They studied it with every tool humanity possessed. Hyun had not slept in 5 days. Salmon had not left the lab in a week. Their eyes were red and their hands shook, but they kept working. Targets human DNA specifically, Hyun explained to the military researchers who guarded them. It attaches to receptors that only humans have. That's why it spreads so fast and kills so efficiently. The Council has been studying us for decades. They knew exactly how to kill us. Can we stop it? One of the guards asked. He had lost his entire family to the plague. We're trying, Salmon said. She pointed to a screen showing molecular structures. The problem is that it mutates. Every time we develop a counteragent, the plague adapts. The Council designed it to evolve, so we can't beat it, the guard asked, despair in his voice. Hyun looked at him. Her face was gaunt and exhausted, but her eyes were fierce. I didn't say that. Humans have been dealing with plagues for 300,000 years. We survived the Black Death. We survived Spanish flu. We survived AIDS and Ebola and Corona. We always survive because we adapt faster than any disease. 6 months after the plague began, Hwayne and Soman announced they had a cure. It was not perfect. It did not save everyone, but it stopped the dying. Slowly, painfully, humanity recovered. The final death toll was 3 billion. 3 billion people who would never see Earth free. 3 billion names that would be remembered forever. Admiral Kwan gathered his commanders in the war room. His face was hard as stone. The Council used biological weapons. They broke every rule of civilized warfare. They tried to exterminate us. Now we show them what that actually looks like. He outlined the new strategy. No more defense. No more waiting for the Council to attack. Humanity would go on the offensive. They would take the war to Council space. They would burn their stations and shatter their fleets. They would make the entire galaxy remember what happened when you tried to genocide the human race, Commander Tay. Free from captivity and burning with rage, led the attack on the Vexel observation posts. These were the stations that had watched humanity for decades, studying them like lab animals. Tay personally destroyed 17 of them. He did not accept surrender. He did not take prisoners. The Vexel had fired the first shot of this war. He made sure they regretted it. As he destroyed each station, he broadcast the same message. This is Commander Tay of Earth. You watched us. You studied us. You thought you knew us? You were wrong. We are not your lab animals. We are not your subjects. We are humans. And we do not forgive. Medical Officer Hannah, scarred but alive, made a horrifying discovery while examining captured Council prisoners. The Council had been genetically modifying species for millennia. Every species in the galaxy had been altered. Aggression removed. Independence suppressed. Ambition deleted. The Council had been breeding servitude into every civilization they contacted. She brought her findings to President Suji. They're not just conquerors. They're genetic engineers. Every species in their empire has been modified to be docile, to accept Council rule, to never rebel. Suji felt sick. How many species? Dozens, maybe hundreds. The data we captured suggests the Council has been doing this for 50,000 years. They call it optimization. They call it peaceful integration. But it's slavery. They're removing free will at the genetic level. Suji made an announcement that changed the entire nature of the war. She broadcast it across every Council frequency in every language. People of the galaxy. We are the humans of Earth. The Council has told you we are monsters. They have told you we are violent and dangerous. They are right. We are dangerous, but not to you. We are dangerous to the Council that has enslaved you. The Council has been modifying your genetics for thousands of years, removing your ability to resist. We have the proof. We are broadcasting the data now. Look at it, see what they have done to you, and then decide, do you want to live as slaves, or do you want to be free? The response was explosive. Species that had served the Council for millennia suddenly questioned everything. The Kresh, a reptilian species used for mining, discovered that their ancestors had been twice as intelligent before Council modifications. The Vela aquatic traders learned that their natural aggression had been suppressed to make them compliant. The Torvin, the bird-like scouts, found records showing their species had once been warriors. Rebellions erupted across the galaxy. The Council, already struggling to fight humanity, now faced internal uprisings. They had to split their forces. They had to fight wars on a dozen fronts. Engineer Jin taught the rebel species human tactics: guerrilla warfare, sabotage, asymmetric combat. The Kresh learned to collapse mining tunnels on Council troops. The Vala learned to poison water supplies on Council stations. The Torvin learned to strike from above and disappear into the clouds. The war spread like fire across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. They had allies. Species that had been slaves for millennia were now warriors, and they fought with the fury of the long oppressed. The Council's capital planet, simply called Council World, became the target. Admiral Quan assembled a fleet for the assault. 500 human ships, 300 allied vessels. They all had one mission: end the Council forever. The siege of Council World began in the spring of 2254, 7 years after the war started. The planet was defended by 1,000 ships and orbital defense platforms that could crack moons. It should have been impregnable, but Quan had learned everything he could about siege warfare from human history. From ancient armies that starved cities into submission to modern forces that bombed them into rubble. He combined every lesson into one overwhelming assault. Pilot Yuna led the atmospheric strikes. Her squadron of 100 fighters punched through the orbital defenses and hit the planetary shields from below. They dropped everything they had: nukes, antimatter bombs, kinetic penetrators. The shields flickered and failed. Captain J, who had somehow survived his suicide run years ago, coordinated the ground assault. Humans in powered armor dropped from orbit. They landed in the Council capital and fought building by building, street by street. The Council species had not fought ground combat in 10,000 years. Humans had never stopped. Commander Nari cut off all supply lines to the planet. No ships in? No ships out. Council World was surrounded, bombarded, and slowly strangled. The siege lasted 2 years. 2 years of constant combat, 2 years of humans and their allies grinding down every defense. The Council threw everything they had at the attackers: energy weapons, kinetic barriers, biological agents. Nothing worked. Humans had been zeking cities since the dawn of civilization. It was in their blood. In their history, from Troy to Stalingrad, humans knew how to break a fortress. They knew how to endure. They knew how to win. When Commander Nera's forces finally breached the Council chamber, they found the 12 ambassadors sitting in their seats, defiant to the end. Ambassador Thren, the Drell who had led the first failed attack on Earth, spoke for them all. "You cannot win," he said. "Even if you kill us, there are other councils. Other species that will stop you." Nari looked at him with cold eyes. "Then we'll fight them too. You should have left us alone. You should have never fired that first shot. But you did. And this is the price." The Galactic Council surrendered. After 50,000 years of unbroken rule, they were defeated by a species they had considered primitive, by creatures they had tried to exterminate. By humans who refused to quit. The galaxy had changed forever. And the war was finally over. The Council chamber was quiet for the first time in 50,000 years. The crystal walls that had witnessed countless decisions now reflected a different scene. Human soldiers stood guard. Allied species representatives filled the observer galleries. And at the center, where the Council had once ruled, sat President Suji of Earth. She looked older than her years. The war had aged everyone. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with grief. She had started the war as a leader of 12 billion people. Now she led 8 billion. 4 billion dead. 4 billion names that haunted her dreams. The 12 Council species knelt before her, not in chains, but in defeat. Ambassador Thren of the Drell spoke first. "What will you do with us?" Suji looked at him for a long moment. Around her stood the people who had won the war. Admiral Quan Gray, and hard as iron. Commander Nari, brilliant and ruthless. Pilot Yuna, with her 23 kill marks. Engineer Jin, and scientist Haon, who had saved humanity from the plague. Medical Officer Hannah, scarred but unbroken. Commander Tay, who had started it all. "That is the question," Suji said. "What do we do with you?" Quan stepped forward. His voice was cold. "They tried to genocide us. They killed 3 billion of our people with a biological weapon. They deserve nothing but extermination." Many in the chamber nodded. The thirst for revenge was strong. The council had shown no mercy. Why should humanity? But Hannah spoke up. "If we exterminate them, we become what they feared. We become the monsters they claimed we were. Is that what 4 billion people died for? So we could prove the council right?" The chamber fell silent. The debate raged for hours. Some argued for harsh punishment, others for mercy. In the end, Suji made the decision. "The council will be dissolved," she announced. "The 12 species that ruled will face trial for their crimes. Those found guilty will be punished according to galactic law, which we will write together with our allies. All genetic modification programs are ended immediately. Every species in the galaxy will be given the choice to remain as they are, or to have their original genetics restored. All species are granted full independence. The council species will pay reparations to humanity and to every species they enslaved." She paused and looked at each council member. "But we will not commit genocide. We will not become what we fought against. Instead, we offer you something you never gave us. A chance." The Treaty of Terra was signed 6 months later. It was a document written by hundreds of species, not just humans. It established the Free Systems Alliance, an organization based on equality rather than domination. Every species got 1 vote, regardless of size or power. Disputes would be settled by discussion and arbitration, not by force. But the treaty had teeth. Humanity became the guarantors of galactic peace. The human military, still the largest and most experienced in the galaxy, would protect the weak and enforce the treaty. It was a heavy responsibility, one that Quan accepted with grim determination. "We fought for freedom," he told the First Free Systems Council. "Now we protect it. If anyone tries to build another empire, they will face us. And we have proven what happens when you fight humans." The cost of victory was terrible. Earth's population had dropped from 12 billion to 8 billion. 23 colonies had been destroyed completely. Entire cities were ruins. The Mars settlement, which had held 2 million people before the war, was home to only 600,000 survivors. 1,847 human ships had been destroyed. The names of every crew member were carved into a memorial that orbited Earth. It took up 50 square kilometers of space and could be seen from the surface at night, a glittering reminder of what the war had cost. But humanity had survived, and with survival came responsibility. Commander Tay became Earth's first ambassador to the Free Systems. He was a good choice. He had started the war by stumbling into alien space. Now he would help build the peace. His message to the galaxy was simple but profound. "We didn't want this war. Your council attacked us without cause. They tried to enslave us. They tried to exterminate us. We fought back. We won. But we take no pleasure in victory. Too many died. Too much was lost. We offer you partnership. We offer you freedom. We offer you protection. In return, we ask only that you never again threaten human lives. Because if you do, we will respond. And you know what we can do?" Engineer Soman and scientist Hyun led the rebuilding effort. The galaxy was in ruins. Centuries of council infrastructure had been destroyed in the war. Stations were shattered. Trade routes disrupted. Entire sectors were lawless. Soman designed new stations built with human engineering and alien technology. Hyun developed medical treatments for species that had been genetically damaged by council modifications. Together, they helped rebuild what the war had destroyed. Pilot Yuna trained the next generation of defenders. The free systems needed a military to protect against pirates, slavers, and potential aggressors. Una taught young pilots from a dozen species how to fly, how to fight, and how to survive. Her students came from Earth, from Mars, from the Kresh mining worlds, from the Vala ocean planets, from the Torvin sky cities. She told them all the same thing. Flying is easy. Fighting is harder. But surviving? That takes something special. You need to be stubborn. You need to refuse to give up. You need to fight even when it seems hopeless. That's what makes a good pilot. That's what makes you dangerous. The galaxy slowly recovered. Trade resumed. New alliances formed. Species that had been enemies learned to work together. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, but they were settled with words and negotiations, not with weapons and war. On Council World, which was renamed Liberty Station, a monument was erected. It stood in the exact center of the old council chamber. It was a wall of black stone, 50 meters high and 100 meters long. Carved into the stone were 4 billion names. Every human who had died in the war, every soldier, every civilian, every man, woman, and child at the base of the monument. An inscription was written in every known language. Here lies the memory of those who died defending humanity. They fought not for conquest or glory, but for survival and freedom. They faced an empire that had ruled for 50,000 years, and they defeated it. Let this monument remind the galaxy of a simple truth. Never start a war with a species that has spent its entire existence fighting for survival. They will not stop. They cannot stop. They are human. 50 years later, Admiral Kwan stood before the monument. He was 96 years old, bent with age, and scarred by a lifetime of war. Beside him stood President Era Suji's successor. Suji had passed away 10 years earlier. Her last words, a wish for peace. They lit a candle at the base of the monument, as humans did every year on the anniversary of the war's end. Around them, representatives from 100 species gathered to pay their respects. The Kresh, the Vala, the Torvin, and dozens of others who had fought alongside humanity. Kwan looked up at the night sky above Liberty Station. Human ships patrolled there, alongside vessels from allied species. The galaxy was at peace. Not the enforced peace of the Council's rule, but genuine peace built on mutual respect and shared freedom. Was it worth it? Era asked quietly. Kwan was silent for a long time. He thought of his grandson dead from the plague. He thought of Captain J and his crew, who had sacrificed themselves in the first battle. He thought of 4 billion names carved in stone. I don't know, he said finally. We paid a terrible price, but we're free. The galaxy is free. Our children will grow up in a universe where no one can enslave them or exterminate them on a whim. Is that worth 4 billion lives? I can't answer that. I can only say that those people died fighting for something they believed in. They died protecting their families and their freedom. And we owe it to them to make sure it wasn't in vain. Era nodded. The Council species, they've been asking for full restoration of their rights. They say they've served their punishment. Have they? Kwan asked. Have they learned? Do they understand what they did? Some don't. They're not so different from us, really. Some are wise. Some are foolish. Some are kind, and some are cruel. Kwan smiled sadly. Then I suppose they are ready to join the free systems as equals. That was always the point, wasn't it? Not to replace one empire with another, but to create something better. He looked at the monument one last time. I'm old, Era. This is probably my last time here. Promise me something. Promise that as long as you lead, you'll remember what we fought for. Not revenge. Not conquest. Freedom. For everyone. I promise, Ara said. Admiral Kwan died 3 months later, peacefully in his sleep. His funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the free systems. Even the former council members came to pay their respects. He was buried on Earth, in a simple grave next to his family. The galaxy mourned him. Not just humanity, but everyone who had gained freedom because of the war he had fought. He was remembered not as a conqueror, but as a protector. A man who had done terrible things because they were necessary. who had never forgotten the cost. Commander Tay spoke at the funeral. He was old now, too, his hair white and his hands shaking, but his voice was still strong. Admiral Kwan once told me that humans are good at surviving. He was right, but he taught me something else. Surviving isn't enough. We have to build. We have to create.